If you're seeking capital for your business, watch this video. These are the 5 things you need to be able to communicate extremely clearly, succinctly, and directly to maximize the chances of getting the capital that you need. So the first of these is the history of the business. Talk about how the business was started, if you weren't the original founder, when you came into the picture, how it has evolved, how it has performed, and what have been the historical strengths of the business, its people, its processes, and its product, service, or offering. Next, you need to speak about the future of the business. This bleeds into some of the other prongs, but say, okay, historically the business has performed this way, as is, or in a pro forma scenario, this is how we would expect the business to continue to operate forward. So if you're seeking capital, people want to know that the capital will help the business, that the capital will make bigger goals accomplishable, that will make the existing goals accomplished quicker. They also would like to know if the business just stayed performing the way that it is, will it continue to perform the right way? And if the answer to that is yes, and you can paint a picture that, hey, this is going to be a good future either way, we would just like your capital to enhance, exacerbate, accelerate, that's a good narrative to have. It's something you should be able to speak to. Now, we spoke in our video earlier this week about buying businesses, the macro and micro considerations, and the similar concepts are applicable here when seeking capital. You want to have a thesis. You want to have a macro story. As the business has been historically doing this, and as we see it in the future doing this is the large sea changes that we think we can take advantage of. We think it's more B2B services because of the consolidation or disaggregation of a particular industry. We think it's more software utilization in old line businesses. We think it's more retail demand for certain offerings, products, services, whatever it is. What is the macro sea change? What is the tide that you are moving with or trying to capitalize on with the business? Now, pivoting to micro, what is the strategy of your particular business to capitalize on these broader macroeconomic considerations? So if you said the tide is changing this way, and within our business, we think if we increase a sales presence in this channel, in this geography, in this demographic, in this end user base, if we enhance our product by adding on these offerings, if we improve our processes by doing these things and thereby allowing us to provide the service at a lower cost to ourselves, at a higher profit margin, whatever the thesis is, whatever the strategy is, know what those micro considerations are that capitalize on the macro considerations. And lastly, getting even further granular and tying all of this together is what are the uses of capital, the allocation, the deployment. You'll hear a lot of times in finance, sources and uses. If the sources of capital is the person you're asking for it from, what are the uses? So you have the business, you know what it historically has done, you know what it's going to do in the future, you have a broader thesis, you have a strategy of how you're going to implement that thesis, and now what are the tactical components, the uses of capital? If we were going to expand sales into this space, we are going to hire this many salespeople, it's going to cost this much, we expect them to have this much more outreach, which will ultimately yield this much more inbound, metric-driven success. That is a good use of capital. If you have operational things that the implementation of this system, of hiring of this person, of doing this thing will increase operating margins by 5%. And the same thing on the product. We think if we add this one feature to our product that will cost 5% more for the product delivery, we can charge 50% more of the price. Right? All of these things, when you get to a very tactical level, that is the use of capital. And you can directly tie the use of capital to an increased profitability or EBITDA production of the business. That is when it becomes a compelling situation. When someone says, oh, I've got all the ideas in the world, and oh, I could use all the money in the world, and we can do these things. Sounds wonderful, but you really have to nail it down tactically. Not just that there's a million things to do, because in any business, there's tons of things you can do, but what is the priority? What are the biggest impact dollar uses? And if you can prioritize those and lay them out for somebody, you can instill a great deal of confidence. And so walking through these 5 things again so that you can communicate clearly why the capital is necessary and why it will be intelligently utilized, you need to know the history of the business, the future of the business, your macro thesis, your micro strategy, and the specific tactical use of fund. And the recurring theme here, have a plan. Have a very broad long-term plan, have a very specific near-term plan. The combination of both of those is what optimizes the probability of getting the capital that you need. Remember, the US government is giving people 5% if you loan them their money. Therefore, you need to convince people that you will be a better steward of their money than the US government. Now, depending on your political beliefs, that may not be a high bar to surpass, but that being said, think of the alternative, what they deem the risk-free rate of return. If you are seeking capital and you are going to have to give a higher rate of return, the higher rate of return has to compensate for the risk. If you can communicate and convince that the risk in your plan is less, you should expect a lower cost of capital, whether that's equity, whether that's debt, or something in between. Convince a capital provider that you will use the money as intelligently, as thoughtfully, and as meticulously watched as if it was your own money, that instills confidence. So that's a thought for today. Hope the week continues to go well for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.